This is not your mom and pop weed. This is THC. It can be up to 35% in the current, or at least the last time I checked, which has been years. Weed from the 70s was like 1% to 2% THC. So it is drastically more potent.
Hello, and welcome to the Art of Emergency Nursing podcast. This is where we share stories for inspiration, entertainment, and encouragement, because we all know emergency nurses have the best stories. Now here's your host, Kevin McFarland.
Hey everybody, Kevin McFarland here from the Art of Emergency Nursing, and if you are like me, you are getting ready to head to Denver for AOEN 22. If this is your first time going to the conference, I hope you have a blast. Conferences, I think, are one of the most important things, and giving us a chance to get together after, I think it's been 3 years since we've had our last live emergency nursing conference. So I'm super excited to go. I'm super pumped. I hope you're pumped too. I can't wait to meet you. If we haven't met yet, I can't wait to meet you. If we have met, I can't wait to see you. I'm super excited. Now, as we're getting ready for AOEN 22, a friend of mine was sharing some amazing tips. She is a former Denver resident, and she had a lot of really great tips that she was sharing about going to and being in Denver. So I asked her to come on the podcast, share this information with you, because I think it's something you're going to want to hear before you get on the plane and head to AOEN 22. So without further ado, I have for you my special guest this week on the podcast, Dr. Chelsea Collins. Oh, and I almost forgot. The views and opinions expressed during this podcast are those of me and my guest alone. They do not represent the organizations we work for or any organizations that we may be part of. So it's just us and our opinion. Enjoy.
My name is Chelsea Collins. I currently live in Wisconsin, but I lived in Denver for 7 years. I moved to Wisconsin last year for a job that I no longer work at. I also am currently working as a travel nurse. So I am in Minneapolis for part of the week, and then I teach at the university here, undergrad and grad students. I graduated with my Doctor of Nursing Practice as a clinical nurse specialist in adult gerocritical care from Johns Hopkins University. So I'm trained as a CNS, and I'm also trained as a forensic nurse, and I still work in Denver and travel back and forth to Denver some. I was very active in Colorado E&A when I lived out there. They're probably some of the best E&A people that I have ever met. They raised me and trained me and grew me to be a good portion of who I am. And then when I left, it was hard to decide whether or not I should transfer my E&A membership, but I did. I was the secretary for Colorado E&A and then the government affairs chairperson. But now I'm co-chair in Wisconsin E&As for the government affairs chairperson position. So
very cool. Well, you started posting something on Facebook that I thought a lot of people needed to hear, because everyone from ENA is getting ready to have their AOEN 22 conference in Denver, Colorado. And here's the thing that I keep thinking about when I think about Denver is that this is the first live conference they've had in 2 years. And people are going to go there.
Yeah.
People are going to go there and go nuts.
Isn't this technically the third year, since it was 2019 was the last one in Austin?
Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess it's been 3 years.
Yeah, we technically missed 2 years.
There's been 2 years where the conference has been virtual, and this is now, again, they're getting ready to do a live conference. I think people are super excited about that and super pumped about that. I know I am. But one of the things I find is that I'm a little worried people are going to go to Denver and cut loose, and and we'll talk about some of the things there are to do there and some of the things that could get them in trouble if they're not thinking about it. So you had some tips that you offered for people who are going to be going to Colorado, maybe for the first time. So I would love for you to share that with the audience.
Okay. So I'll just present it in the same way that I kind of presented it on social media. So if you're my friend on Facebook, you probably have heard some of this already. But the very first tip actually came from Andrew Bowman reaching out to me and asking, what is the best way to get from DIA to the conference center? Now, if you don't know, DIA is not its actual call. It's DEN when you type it in, but everybody calls it DIA for whatever reason. And it's not actually in Denver. I mean, they've annexed that space, but it's like 50 minutes from downtown Denver if you're going through
it's a
traffic.
long ways away. Like
Yeah.
transportation's going to be an issue.
Yes. Yes. So it's very important to know that if you are going to be Ubering, depending on the time of day, and depending on if there are any surge pricing or anything like that, Ubering might not be or Lyft might not be the best way to do it. That being said, Denver has a really robust Uber and Lyft platform, so you can utilize that throughout there. The one suggestion that I had is the light rail. The light rail has a direct train from DIA to Union Station downtown. And then you can hop on the mall ride, which is actually a free ride that goes up and down 16th Street Mall, and it will get you like 2 blocks away from the convention center itself. The light rail is also fairly robust and it travels throughout the area. So if you want to explore that a little bit, that would be another thing that you could definitely look into. But I think it's about a 40-minute ride from the A line, taking you from DIA to Union Station. And I don't think it's that expensive. The only caveat that I would say is, and this is not just for your commuting back and forth to the convention center, but anytime you're on 16th Street Mall, there are a lot of homeless individuals and there has been some history of having some, I don't even want to say assaulting, but there have been some assaults that have happened on 16th Street. But there have been some individuals that, get a little harassed or bugged for panhandling and stuff like that. So just something to be aware of. Also, you will smell a lot of pot on 16th Street. So just to know that.
We'll talk more about that because that's something people need to look out for too. We'll talk more about that in a bit. So what's the weather going to be like when we're there?
So Denver is high desert, even though Denver itself is not in the mountains. The mountains are about an hour to the west. Yes, Denver is at altitude and is high desert. So being high desert, that means that the weather can change like 40 and 50 degrees between the day and nighttime. I was looking at it earlier today when I was talking to some Virginia members, and the low is like 40 degrees later this week, 48 degrees, and the high is like 87. Wearing weather appropriate layers is probably a good bet because convention centers anyway are always freezing cold.
Every single time. Always, always, always.
No matter where you're at, no matter what season it is, they're always cold.
Bring a sweater, bring a sweatshirt, bring a parka, bring something so that you're not going to be freezing, because when it's warm outside, oftentimes in these convention centers, it's just cold.
Yeah, so I would say at nighttime you might be a little bit breezy or a little chilly, especially if you're coming from like Houston. But I would expect it also to be pretty warm in the middle of the day. So you don't necessarily need to be wearing snow boots and like all flannel and like all parka gear and all that stuff. But it could snow in the mountains. It's already snowed. But the snowiest month in Colorado is actually March. So nice. You'll probably not see snow during that time, but you might see some cold dips for sure.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that you already mentioned that makes it so cold is the altitude. Denver, the Mile High City, that's because of that high altitude. Now, one of the things I always tell people is that altitude's no joke. Like you got to climatize a little bit to that altitude. Let's talk a little bit about when you'd see people come when you're working in Denver. We had the same thing in Albuquerque. We already had people come from sea level to all of a sudden altitude, and they'd be like, "Ooh, I don't feel so good."
Yeah. So like I even came from 4,000 feet to Denver, and I had altitude sickness the first couple of times, not the full blown altitude sickness, but I was definitely affected by it. So if you want to, you can go to the Colorado State Capitol, and there is on the steps where it's officially at the Mile High, it's engraved on the steps, and that would be one place to go see. But altitude sickness, we would see a lot of. We would also see a lot of people who were accustomed to smaller levels of altitude, but then would go up into the mountains of like 9,000 feet and higher. And they would come back down to the Denver metro area, and they would be having issues. Things that you might see just in and of yourself would be like a little bit of a lot of fatigue more than anything, but headache, some slight dizziness, nausea, vomiting, fatigue. I will tell you there are 3 main hospital systems that you guys will probably have access to if something were to happen when you're in the Denver metro area. So you should be fine if you need to go to the hospital for any of that stuff, but just knowing that starting to drink water and drinking a lot of water up to a week before is something that will definitely help some of your transition. And then just knowing that you should be prepared to not be able to run marathons, because marathoners and athletes literally go to the Denver metro area in Colorado Springs, and they train there because then they have higher oxygen carrying capacity because your body produces more blood cells.
Yep, absolutely. So don't plan on going out there and killing it on the exercise. You may be just working hard just to breathe and just kind of be there. So.
No 14ers for you, Kevin.
That's right. I think that's probably wasn't on my list of to-dos, but we'll make sure to just go ahead and cross that off, because that altitude sickness can really be no joke. We'd see people in New Mexico, it happen all the time. So
yeah, and it's kind of vary for each individual. So, and it doesn't necessarily happen like right when you get off the plane. I think I was there one time before I moved there, and it was like 3 weeks later that it hit me too. So
now one of the things that where the altitude really tends to hit people is where I'm a little worried, because I know y'all are going to be out there and y'all are going to be partying. You're going to be drinking. You're going to be catching up with all your friends that you haven't seen in a really long time. You may be tipping a few back, but that alcohol, it hits a little bit different at altitude, doesn't it?
And by a little bit, we mean a lot bit. There are definitely a lot of people that have come into the emergency department who are visiting from other areas who have imbibed in various substances that Colorado's famous for. And drinking is one of them, where you can have it hits you much quicker, much sooner. I'm going to tell you, Wisconsin has like the 50th drunken counties in the country. Wisconsin has like 47 of them.
Wow.
And that being said, Wisconsin beer is not anything close to Colorado beer. Sorry, Wisconsinites, I will still continue to say this until my dying breath, but Wisconsin has some okay beer. Colorado has some great beer, and there's a lot of craft breweries, and they have a lot of beer that has higher ABVs. So you want to just be mindful to take it slow, drink water in between. You're still probably going to be just as drunk, if not drunker, than you normally would be. But hey, then we can all save money on going to Denver for the first time after 3 years.
Right. Yeah, it definitely be careful with the drinking, because it's going to hit you a little bit different. So, and one of the things I've heard about Denver is that it's got an amazing beer scene. Like I've heard that it's a lot of great bars. I think there's things planned at some of the local bars. I know me and Sarah Wells are planning a little get together, a little shindig. We bring everybody in, follow on social for that. But yeah, we got to be careful when they're drinking there. But that's not all you can do in Denver.
Well, but the other thing to note about drinking in Denver is Denver Health actually has an ambulance that goes around and picks up drunk people. So, Kevin, I'm telling you this because I know how often you run into the cops.
Oh yeah. For those of you who don't know, I actually got pulled over in Austin at the last live conference. I got pulled over while riding one of those little rental scooters. I got pulled over and like asked for my driver's license and made to think I was going to jail right in front of the convention center. And I think everybody's seen it. And I know one person who seen it for sure was Vanessa from Australia. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay? Are you getting arrested?" And I'm like, "Gosh, I hope not. That'd be really embarrassing." But getting picked up by the drunk tank, don't get picked up by the drunk tank, because you will be shamed for sure.
It's literally an ambulance that is made to look kind of like the animal catcher things, where they have like sections you can go into, and then they take you to the drunk tank and you sober up the next morning. I've never been there, and I work for the organization that runs the drunk tank, but I don't know that I can get you guys to get out of the drunk tank. So just be good and be safe.
That's funny. Drunk tank. I'm gonna just Google that real quick and see it there.
It's called Denver Cares.
Let's see.
Yeah, their Denver Cares program it's super fascinating.
Well, I mean, what a great idea to do that instead of take them all to the emergency department. So,
Right?
but certainly, don't be that nurse that misses, the second day of conference because you got picked up by the drunk tank. We will
I have
train
class.
you for sure.
I have class on Sunday morning, that a lecture that I'm teaching, which plug for my lecture, sodium nitrate toxicity, should totally come to it. But I was like, of course they would schedule me after the welcome party or the foundation party on Saturday night. And I was like, no, don't schedule me that early.
No one's going to be there. Like, you're going to be the only one there and you're not even going to be sober. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Hey, man, I
Now,
have done worse things drunk. Just
now, one thing with Denver, like I mentioned, drinking is not all you can do there. There's other things you can imbibe in as well. We should probably talk a little bit about that, because that's going to be something that if you're not used to at home, this isn't, I'll let you take it from there.
So the most important thing is, if you smell a skunk, it is not a skunk. It is 99.9% pot. There's a lot of processing plants in the Denver metro area. If you take I-70 from the airport, and even Pena Boulevard, there's one that you go by and you can just smell the processing of marijuana. And you're like, oh, what's that skunk? Oh, no, wait, it's the pot. So when you're walking down 16th Street Mall, when you're walking anywhere in the public, even though it's supposed to be illegal to smoke in public, people still do it. And you very well will smell a lot of pot, probably. If someone offers you a cookie, just don't. The same goes for any baked goods. Seriously, I didn't realize this when I was a new grad in the ER. Patients would bring us baked goods, and the ER, like anywhere else, you wouldn't expect this to be a problem. But in Denver, they're like, yeah, we can't accept baked goods. And I'm like, why not? Because people would put things in them. So we would just have to throw all the baked goods away. So if anybody, and the other one would be gummy candy. Now, if you know me and you know who I am, and you can flash back to, I think it was General Assembly 2016. This is not your mom and pop weed. This is THC. It can be up to 35% in the current, or at least the last time I checked, which has been years, percentage of THC in the weed that is purchased from dispensaries. But weed from the 70s was like 1 to 2% THC. So it is drastically more potent. And if it is something that you are planning on trying to imbibe in while you are in Denver, it's important for you to know that working at a hospital as a federally funded organization that gets money for CMS, you can still get drug tested. And even if you were doing legal pot in Colorado on vacation time, if they decided to drug test you when you got back and you popped for pot, then you still could lose your job. In Denver, so many people would be upset. Well, why can't, I even had this conversation this weekend with somebody. Like, well, why can't you have like medical marijuana or something as a nurse? No, because it's not federally approved and there's federal funding. So I just don't want anybody to be like, oh, I'm in Colorado, I want to go ahead and try pot, but also I know what pot is like and I can do this and be okay with it. No, because people know you're going to Denver for the conference and who knows when your next drug test will be. So just be mindful of that. But the other thing to know is if you do partake in any of that particular substance,
which we don't recommend. Again, we don't recommend based on your job, but
right, like you're an adult. You can decide your own personal things, but I just need you to know that it's called a rookie cookie for a reason. And I only know this because I worked in the ER. I am like the most naive person. Like I lived in Denver and I couldn't even tell you where I could get pot, right? Like that's how naive I am for this. But I learned that a rookie cookie is 10 milligrams of THC. And if you have more than that, then it is too much for you. And I will tell you, based off of the one patient that I had that had 8 rookie cookies for 80 milligrams, that was the most vomit that I have ever seen in my entire life. And that's including the guy that I stuck an NG tube and got 2 liters out. So.
Oh, Lord. So if you're going to partake, please, 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 please be careful, be safe, be smart. Don't go nuts. Don't go nuts. We had I'll never forget, we had a guy I worked with that got drug tested, and he's like, oh, well, I have a medical marijuana card. And I'm like, that's really nice, but it just doesn't matter. You're still going to get fired if you pop positive for THC, which of course he did. And then it was like, sorry, there you go. You're done. So don't let that be you.
And for those of you that are bringing family members or considering taking anything back home, they do the dogs at the Denver airport fairly frequently. So it's just important to know that don't mess around with that, because you could lose your license over it. And not that all of us are enjoying nursing right now, but you don't want to lose something that you work so hard for something silly like that.
Absolutely.
The other thing I was thinking about sharing with you guys that I thought of earlier today is the airport, because I travel back and forth. One of the flight attendants told me that they actually changed some of their flight schedules. So if your flights are first thing in the morning, they've kind of packed them full in the morning. So you should get there early. I'm somebody who usually screeches into Denver like an hour before with a checked bag, and usually gets through and I have no issues. I have Clear Me and I never have any issues. But if you have that like 6, 7, 8 a.m. flight, give yourself significantly more time, because they have so many flights going out at that time, and the security is definitely larger, and then the bag drop is definitely longer. And I experienced that the last couple of times I went. I barely made my flight, and I did go a little bit early.
It is a very busy airport, and it's way out from everything else. So give yourself plenty of time to get there.
Yeah. From downtown Denver, know that rush hour probably starts at 7 in the middle of the week, maybe a little bit earlier. And then it probably goes until about 6:30. You get a little bit of breaks in between, but even from like your 11:30 to 2:30, you're still fairly busy too for your lunch hour break. So
now this is my favorite question to always ask people, because I, of course, like to eat. Any favorite restaurants, any favorite places to go drink, eat, be merry, go hang out with folks? Any places you recommend?
So I have a bunch. One of my favorite places to eat is Wine Coop Brewery, which is actually where you guys are doing your event, correct? No, you're not.
What was the other one you told me? View House.
View House.
View House. Which
View House is also super cool.
That reminds me, I got to call them, because we made an RSVP for like 20. And I think we have like 50 people who have already RSVP'd already. So we may have a very big party there at the View House in Denver. So if you're looking for that, go on my Facebook, go on Sarah Wells's Facebook, and you'll find it.
So definitely View House is pretty good. There's a couple in the metro area, so I don't know if it's a chain or not, but I've enjoyed it when I went. But Wine Coop Brewery, if you can go, they have an upstairs pool area, and they brew their own beer. It's really good. It's actually owned by a senator, used to be former governor of Colorado, Hickenlooper. Obama drank there. So it's a pretty cool brewery. It has a really cool vibe as well. It's in an old warehouse, and it's just super cool vibe. It's a little bit outside of the downtown area, but if you go to Cherry Creek at all, that's one of the bigger areas that people go to shop and explore. Cherry Cricket is a wonderful hamburger place. And then my favorite is a place called Bull and Bush Brewery. You should look at their logo, because it entertains me so much. There's also another place that I don't know if you guys will be able to go and explore unless you take the light rail down or have a car. But it's, and I think I'm pronouncing it correct, but it's Tukabe. It is an Indian eatery that has like Indian tacos and fry bread, and I just absolutely love that place too. So Casa Bonita, I've never been there, but they are the other. What? I've never been there, Kevin, but they're like, I think they're under renovation right now though. But apparently that's the cool place to go too.
Now, it's one of those places, and I'll tell you a little bit about that, because I've been there. It's one of those places where you got to go. It's legendary. I mean, it was in South Park. It was in The Simpsons. It was in like Like everybody tells you when you go to Denver, you got to go to Casa Bonita, and you don't go for the food. I mean, it's a restaurant and all, you're going to eat, but
But
you're
you
not
don't
there for
go
the food. You go there for the ambiance. It is one of the coolest restaurants you'll ever see inside. There's a, I don't even know how many feet cliff. They do cliff diving right there in the restaurant, which is super cool. They have Olympic quality, Olympic level divers. They're just putting on shows all the time. And it's incredible. Now the food, well, it probably won't kill you. But it's not great. I'll be honest with you. It's not great. Like it tastes like, what it reminded me of when I had it was school cafeteria Mexican food, which I didn't
think
hate.
even worse than Taco Bell is what
I didn't hate it, but it was one of those places where you had to go and you would eat there, but you wouldn't really be there for the food.
Oh,
So,
here's another random factoid. Did you know that mushrooms are legal in Denver?
really?
Yeah.
Is that a thing? Is there like
So don't take mushrooms from anybody too.
no psychedelic mushrooms? Yeah, that's say that for a time when you're not there for a conference. Just a tip from your old pal, Kevin.
Interestingly, though, did you know that they're starting to explore using microdosing psychedelics for like people with depression, kind of like how you use ketamine and stuff for depression?
All the research says that it works incredibly, and I haven't, I'm no Dr. Wolf here. I'm not, digging into the research. But I've heard a couple podcasts that talk a lot about some of the microdosing and some of the things they're doing with psychedelics that really could be potentially amazing for the right patients. Now, with that said, not recommended for you to go when you're going there for a conference. Just pass on that for now.
I went up to our pharmacist one day in the ED and I was like, okay, do you know anything about ketamine for depression? And I swear to God, this pharmacist, he goes, we are not doing ketamine for depression in the emergency department. I was like, no, I'm not. That's not what I'm suggesting. I just want to know if you know about it because I'm curious and I want to learn more about this particular thing. And then I want to learn about the psychedelic stuff too, because I think that could be a fascinating thing for those individuals who aren't working well with our pharmacological.
It'd be a great topic. If anyone out there has any interest, research it and bring it to the next DNA conference. I'd love to hear it.
Totally. Maybe I'll come up with that. Who knows?
There you go. Anything else you recommend doing while they're in Denver? It's cool. Some of the cool things to do.
There are, Larimer Square, that's going to be close to downtown Denver that you can explore. And there's a mall in that area. Like the 16th Street Mall, it's mostly outside that you can see. If you can, the clock tower is on the 16th Street Mall. I just texted a couple of people tonight and was like, ooh, we should go to one of the burlesque shows. And Kelsey's like, I'm not planning anything. I'm taking it by day. And I was like, that's totally fair too. So I know that's cool. The Capitol Hill is probably one of my favorite buildings. And it was so sad to see it get vandalized during some of the protests, but it's a beautiful building. I think you might be able to request tours now again, so that would be something if you want to. Yeah, it's just most of your time will probably be spent on 16th Street Mall, and you can take that free mall ride up and down if you're staying in downtown Denver. So
very cool. Well, I hope these tips will help you when you're there at the conference. Hope it'll help you have a great time. I can't wait to see everybody at the conference. I'm super excited to go. It's always like a big family reunion. You get to see people you only see a couple times a year. So I'm super excited about that. And if you don't know anyone, there's a young lady that I've been talking to that's from Houston. And she reached out to me. This is the first time she's going to the conference. So if this is your first time and you're going to the conference for the first time, man, just talk to as many people as you can, make friends. We all have similar backgrounds and experiences, and you're not going to have a hard time finding friends there at all.
And if all else fails, I'm usually the one making friends with everybody, and everybody remembers me, but I don't remember them. Sorry.
You're the social butterfly.
Sure, so. My mom also calls me that, but I was going to say, yes, like you guys can always reach out to me. I'm available. And I mean, if all else fails, you can make friends with the aliens at the airport.
Oh, that's right. Aliens at the airport. Hopefully we'll see some of those. That'd be kind of cool. Denver's kind of a cool town. Denver, I get to spend a little bit of time in Denver, and I really always thought it was kind of a cool town. And I'm super excited the conference is there, and I know everyone's going to be kind of going nuts because it's their first live conference in reality, there's going to be, a handful of people that I haven't seen since we were in Austin that I just can't wait. Like now keep in mind, COVID's still out there, even though everyone's kind of like said, it's fine. You're good. So
I just got the
be wary of
bivariant.
that.
I just got the bivariant vaccine, which has the Omicron in it. So you can go to Walgreens and get that before the conference if you want to.
Yeah, go get vaccinated. Go get your booster if you haven't already, and maybe that'll help. I'm gonna definitely get a booster before I go for sure. So
yeah, Denver's just an eclectic, wonderful place. There is just a special vibe about the whole area that it very easily became home to me. And that's all. There's no way to really describe it. It's an amazing place, and I think most people will actually fall at least a little bit in love with it.
That's awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough for sharing the tips you were so kindly sharing on Facebook, and then now coming here and sharing it with our audience. I'm super excited to see you in Denver. I can't wait. Can't wait to see everybody. And definitely, if you listen to the podcast and we haven't met, definitely say hi, and I'd love to see you and meet you. And then we're doing a social on. Let me pull this up. I'm gonna have to. I don't remember where it is. I think it's Thursday night. We are doing a live in-person happy hour. If you've been part of our virtual happy hours, and you know that myself and Sarah Wells have hosted a couple happy hours where we got nurses together to talk and catch up and BS when we were together via Zoom. And we're super excited to say that we're going to be able to do an in-person meetup. It's going to be Thursday the 29th. As we already mentioned, it is going to be in person. It is going to be at the
View House
Ballpark is the one. There's a few view houses, so make sure you're on the right one. If you go on Facebook, there's an event that if you type in ER Nursing Happy Hour, you'll see it. We have had about 50 or so people RSVP so far, which is about 30 more than we expected. But I can't wait. Now we're up to almost 60 here that are going. So and another 60 that has said maybe. So we may have a big old nurse party there. So so definitely be there for that. If you want to come, we'd love to see you. So I can't thank you enough for sharing this with our audience. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this with me. I really appreciate it.
And just so you know, Kevin, there are scooters in Denver too.
Well, I am going to have to stay off those because I don't want to get pulled over. I don't want to get picked up by the paddy wagon. I'm going to stay off. No scooters for me. No scooters for me.
Just know that in Austin, when we were on the scooters, the traffic was far more forgiving than I think it will be in Denver. So if you do the scooters if you do the scooters in Denver, just be mindful that I don't think the traffic's going to be nearly as forgiving as it was in Austin.
And FYI, in the fine print, as I found out in Austin, it says that you do have to have your driver's license. You do have to you have to be a licensed driver to drive one of those. I didn't know that. I was so shocked when the officer asked me for my driver's license. And I'm like, seriously? And he's like, yeah, seriously. And I was like, okay. And then he was like, it's illegal to drive these without a driver's license. I was like, I had no idea. It's also illegal to run a red light on those. So don't do that because you're going to get yourself in trouble. So
I suspect you could get a DWI with them too.
Yeah, absolutely. You can absolutely get a DWI on those as well. It's considered a motor vehicle. So be careful. Don't be silly like I was.
Kevin was not drinking at the time.
Yeah, I was not drinking at the time. So I have that going for me. So it was early. I was on my way to the conference because it's pretty cool way to get around, like a small neighborhood. But if you haven't been to an ENA conference before, you are going to have a blast. I can't wait to see you there. I can't wait to see everybody. I'm going to see.
Bring good walking shoes.
It's like a family get together. Oh, for sure. Good walking shoes for sure. Mm-hmm. And don't forget that jacket because we already talked about how cold the conference center is going to be. It's going to be cold. I want to hear you whining that you're cold. So
and bring a couple snacks too from like the gas station or something because the conference center snacks are typically really expensive.
Really expensive. Drinks too. So
and you can never find them, and then everybody wants them all at the same time. So
and forget coffee. The coffee line is always ridiculous.
Yeah, but the good thing about Denver is they're also pretty bougie about their coffee. So there's coffee shops like all around.
Everywhere. Yeah, everywhere. So again, thank you so much for doing this with me. I really, really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see you in Denver.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. That's
It's
for
gonna be
sure.
interesting. So, all right. Thanks a bunch.
Thanks.